Loneliness is something that many of us experience throughout our lives. I've come to realize that it's not actually loneliness that needs to be explored, but belonging, the lack of belonging. And I think it affects us in different ways. As someone who's come from a migrant background, I know that my life when I was a child is very different to the life my children are having. The sense of community is different. The sense of places where you call homes, family, friends, it's diminishing as we speak. The belonging question is a big question.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I remember being a teenager and coming to terms with my sexuality, and even the way I've just phrased that, coming to terms with, it's like a fucking death sentence. You know, realising that I was gay, being bullied at school, not feeling a sense of place there, like really questioning, you know, if I was any good, like in such a big way. And then starting to go out into like the gay community, like, you know, stealing away into Manchester at the age of 14 and starting to go into like the gay bars and stuff like that, and then being turned away at the doors saying, oh no, we don't let straight people in, sorry. You know, it's like, fuck off. And I was like, oh no, I'm gay. Like, no, you're not, get out of here. So not having a sense of place in school, daily life for being gay, and then not having a place in the gay community because I was perceived as being straight. And I was constantly trying to appear as straight because I didn't want to get bullied. So just this sense of not belonging anywhere. And I found that so difficult at that age, you know. And I wonder like how many children still go through those things of not belonging, and not just for being gay or trans or bi or whatever, but just because they don't feel like they belong in the family because they're classed as the black sheep of the family, or because they're not academic, or because they're dyslexic, or because they're neurodivergent. You know, what is the narrative that people carry around not belonging?
Yeah, I really hear you on that. For me, it's from past traumas, I was homeless in the past, so the sense of safety really comes in, where, yeah, if I truly are fully myself, I feel like I wouldn't belong. So my journey has been like, what part of me can I show so then I fit in? And then there's a level of, it's enough for me to fit in. You know, at least I can fit in. You know, my sense of race, identity, experience don't really come into it. I can morph myself so I can really fit into an environment, to space, to a community. So then I feel like I'm part of the community. But for a long time, even until now, there's still this kind of like struggle in some way where I don't fully know where I truly belong. Truly belong where I can be fully myself without the need of hiding parts of myself. So this is why I value men's work and spaces where men can really show up as ourselves, where I can learn, hear, express parts of myself that I feel like I've shrunk away because of shame, guilt, experiences that showed me otherwise, and then actually retrain myself so then I can be more of myself in the spaces that I occupy. The men's space is starting as almost like the training ground. We go to the gym to get bulk, to get hench, you know, like where is that space where I can experience and train my sense of belonging in myself amongst other men, which then gives me more confidence in myself to be more of myself in yeah, other non-gendered spaces.
It was Gabor Mate that said something like, there's two primary needs we all have: the need to be yourself and the need to belong. And often we'll forego ourselves in order to belong. But we deep down know we're foregoing ourselves. We deep down know how much we're hiding, how much we're suppressing, in order to have someone simply not attack us, in whatever ways they may be. That sense of belonging then can't be conditional. It cannot be. Because by its very nature then, it's fragile. Belonging has to be something that I genuinely don't know how we navigate this in this current climate. But I know that for myself, I've not felt more belonging than I have in these men's spaces. That's the honest truth, is that in those spaces, I'm totally myself. And I was just saying earlier on that when we're working here, we're talking here, we're enjoying life here, but I'm myself completely here. But I know in the workspace, there's a huge chunk of me. I don't lie, I don't, hide who I am, but I don't show it because it's like, this is a part of me that I'm not going to gift it here. And as a result of that means that I'm very guarded in certain spaces. Yeah. And that guarded then means I'm always thinking, actually, if I can't be myself with you, then I don't want to belong to you either.
Yeah. Yeah, I really feel that. Really feel that. These last 4 years, like co-facilitating retreats with the both of you in these different spaces, in these men's circles and workshops, it's been unbelievable. Like, I know what it's been for me on a personal level, and seeing that mirrored in the guys that come to our spaces as well. How do you quantify love? Like, how do you quantify the depth of what it feels like to be given the permission to be yourself exactly as you are? You don't need to be anything, just come along. Just we accept you as you are. There's nothing you need to do, there's nothing you need to say. You don't need to earn a certain income. It's just like, just show up as you. And seeing how that resonates with guys and how shocking that is for them to be accepted in that way, it's unbelievable. Like, I cry on every retreat that we've been on, like I just do, because of what it brings up for me, what it gives me in that way. And, I cry for what I see in other men, what they've been holding in all these years and just living with fear of showing themselves or being themselves or having a voice, or, just not daring to just be themselves fully, like you said, because the fear of how they're going to be received for whatever reason and whatever that narrative or story is. There was one guy from our last retreat in December, and I connected with him about 4 days after the retreat, and I was saying, how are you getting on? And he's like, you know what, I got home that night and ended up having a conversation with my wife, and it was like more in depth than we would normally. The next day, took the kids to the park, and then we went to the pub, and then I just started crying for no reason. I was like, what was going on for you? He's like, I just turned to my wife and I said, I miss the guys. Like, I've never been in a space with men like that before, and I've never been witnessed or received in that way. And he said, I just put my head in my hands, and I just started sobbing for these men who had only just met. But in the space of 3 days, I'd shared so profoundly with them, and so just openly, sheer vulnerability. And he said they just held it, and they didn't try and do anything with it. And then I held them in a similar way. And that for me is just monumental.
Yeah. You can't belong in a place you don't cry. You can't cry. It's I can't remember where I read this, that, there's crying is like pissing. If you hold it in, it's going to really fuck you up, right? But you don't piss everywhere. You don't piss everywhere. There's a place where you do it. So it's like, it's the same thing. It's like crying has to be intentional. But this idea that men don't cry is fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
It's absolute nonsense.
And something on the back of that as well, I can't remember where this quote comes from, but it's in some training that I had recently, and I'll try and get it right, is emotion that does not find its expression in tears will make organs weep. So when we hold in all these emotions and we do not allow ourselves to express it, fuck me, is that turning toxic inside of us? It makes us ill. And it's that analogy of like a pressure cooker or a stress bucket. It's just getting fuller and fuller and fuller and fuller. And we hold on to all of this emotion. We suppress it, we depress it, and we're just storing it in our cells, in our organs, in our tissues, and we're not allowing it to move and process and be expressed. And that's exactly what we're meant to do with emotions. We're meant to express them. Kids are meant to act out. It's part of it. They're meant to scream, shout, cry. You look at like children and you look at the super old, they don't give a fuck. They'll express themselves as much as one, And then it's all that time in between where we're suppressing, controlling, hiding, and that's where all the issues are.
Takes practice, it takes relearning these authentic expression, radical authenticity. And if we don't have that space to really practice and explore that, then same old patterns will just continue. Until, as men, crisis happens, shit happens, and then we're faced to deal with it. Like I've had 2 burnouts, an existential crisis. Before that, yeah, it was okay. Like I was surviving. And I thought I was thriving, doing all these things and achieving all these things. But on the inside, I was dying. Nobody knew. Yeah. It was miserable on the inside, and I couldn't give myself permission to even express that out loud. And in the company of other men, spaces that I could be myself, I can retrain, I can relearn, untrain, unlearn, I guess in some ways a better way of framing it, this. Unlearning what I've learned, and then from that space of unlearning, I can really explore a new way of relating, a new way of being, a new way of expressing. And then I can express myself better with my partner. I could express myself better with my family. When my family lives in Indonesia, the year before, I went for 8 weeks, and I got triggered once, almost got triggered once, right, over a text from a brother, and I was like, wow, this shows progress. Like, the old me would have got triggered so many times at what my mum said, what my dad said, the judgments and the comments, and not being triggered and actually accepting them as they are, loving them as they are, loving them in their imperfections, accept them as human beings. And so, I can really give myself a pat in the back to recognize my progress.
Mm-hmm. And being able to love your family or anyone is also knowing when not to love them as well. Knowing when to be like, I'm away. I can't love you right now, so I'm not going to turn up.
I think that's so key. What do we have capacity for? How do we override that capacity, thinking that we have to be something for somebody else, when first we need to be something for ourselves?
Which also invites us to think about, how do we cry when alone? And how do you cry then with those who are closest to you? Because that in itself is its own journey.
It is.
To be able to be okay with crying alone, with the eternal, the divine, God, Allah, whatever you want to call that which is beyond the creation. It's there, and it's we've consumed an idea of our loneliness as a problem, as opposed to seeing it as a segue into solitude. Because solitude brings us back to ourselves. And in loneliness, we're trying to run away from ourselves. And that's because loneliness then is a reaction to what's happening outside of us. And it's like, we need solitude, we need belonging. We need to be able to be comfortable with ourselves. And these both happen together. But belonging question is not a personal endeavor. It's a collective one. I can't choose to belong to you. You can't choose to belong to me. It's got to be mutual. And that's the journey that I think we're on the beginning point of, is that creating communities of men that aren't defined by football, religion, or socioeconomic background, but just simply the fact that we're men and we're turning up. And we're saying, just turn up as you are, and let's journey together.
I think something that in what you shared there is, this belonging to each other, belonging to a community. But what's coming up for me is about, how do I belong to myself first? Like, I couldn't sit in solitude in the past. I couldn't sit in silence. I needed to always fill the silence. Always have a podcast on, music on in the background. Yeah. Never allowing space, never allowing silence in my life. That was the story of my past. And then I go, fuck, is that true? Let me push my comfort zone. So I did 10-day silent meditation. Fucking hard. And then, okay, so I can do that. What else can I do? I did the 4-day solitude, a vision quest, alone in nature. And then in these spaces of my journey of really reclaiming and re-belonging in myself, then I can show up as my whole self within myself. And then in these spaces with other men, I can go, okay, I know to a certain extent myself as a whole. Let me experiment with sharing my whole self with the community that I'm part of. Am I accepted? Oh yeah, I am. I can share this part of myself, and I'm still accepted. People still want to be my friend, right? And then the more I practice that, it becomes a symbiotic. I belong to myself. I belong to the community, and then it becomes a cycle of positive confirmation in the way I'm being in the world.
Yeah, it works both ways. It's the way we treat ourselves is what we're going to allow others to treat us. But equally, the way others treat us will inform how we treat ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Chicken and egg.
yeah, it's both ways.